When I get on a roll, I really get on a roll. And I've been on a roll lately here on the channel. You see, I took a look at the last 4 G1 figures in my personal collection recently. And I sort of followed that up by taking a look at the last Transformers Prime figure in my personal collection. And I'm going to follow that up today by taking a look at the last of the movie figures in my collection. Kinda, sorta, at this particular moment in time. Let me explain. Today we're going to focus on this guy. It is the Studio Series Ironhide. He's not really in my collection because this is on loan to me by a friend of the channel, John. And he's going to be our focus in the latest GotBot True review. But he's kind of not alone. Because of a couple of size comparisons that I plan to do, I'm also going to take the opportunity now to address the Wave 3 deluxes for the Studio Series. That being the repaint of Ratchet, the repaint of Lockdown, took me a second to get that one there, and the new Bumblebee. I don't have any of these figures. I do have thoughts on them from what I know. I'm not going to spend a long time on it, but when we do the size comparisons with this guy, I'll kind of do a little bit of an aside there and just sort of quickly run through it. Hopefully I'll get the opportunity at some point to look at those figures more fully, but for now, looking at this guy and kind of talking about them is going to kind of cap off sort of everything we have at the moment for the Studio Series line. At least for now. So without any further ado, let's jump into the latest GotBot True review. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, please like, comment, share, and of course subscribe, as you know that helps me out tremendously. Check out Machinery Man, the Everything Factor, Transformers Collectors NL, and me everywhere. And this is, of course, Ironhide, and he's pretty cool. Now, he is mistransformed out of package, and that sort of threw me for a loop because I found him really loose. But once you get him solidified, and I'll talk about how I do that a little bit later, he's kind of great, even if there are a couple of odd hinge choices. The coloration is largely accurate, but I did do a couple of custom paint apps, and we'll talk about those. And the conversion is, at first it seems a little fiddly, but there's a brilliance and an elegance behind it once you get to know it. Anyway, enough of me babbling on about this guy. Let's head over to the table and take a closer look at him. And this is Studio Series 14 Ironhide, a Voyager class figure. And as previously stated, I'm going to touch on my thoughts regarding the Wave 3 deluxes. I'm not particularly planning to look at them here on the channel. You know, you have a Ratchet repaint. In essence, you have a Lockdown repaint with a new head. And of course, you have that Bumblebee movie, Bumblebee. I don't know if I'll get a chance to look at them, but just in case I don't, I just wanted to kind of very quickly give my thoughts on that. But we'll do that sort of as we go here. So to speak, of course, we're going to start off with his packaging. And as you might well expect, his packaging looks like this. Of course, we have artwork here on the side that wraps around to the front. And nice artwork on this side, product shot and whatnot on the back. It is what it is. Inside, of course, we have that standard display scene. And it looks like this. And I assume that this is from the Battle of Mission City, since the bio says that Ironhide dodges missiles and returns fire as he answers the call to protect Mission City. So I guess you can take Ironhide and, you know, place him amid the battle, and, you know, he'll look like that. Of course, he also comes with these instructions, and as I've said about some of the Studio Series instructions before, you might as well pitch these away. They are largely absolutely useless. We have this nice blaster that I guess looks like it transformed out of his door, I suppose. There's a couple of rectangular pegs, and there's a 5mm circular peg on this thing. We'll see kind of how you know, how that works and why it's there in a little bit, but it looks really cool, molded very nicely. I did some custom paint on the inside. That's just black. I painted it yellow by request. This is not, by the way, my figure. This belongs to John, friend of the channel. I greatly appreciate him letting me take a look at it, and he requested that little bit of customization, so hey, why not? And since we all know that Ironhide likes to show off his blasters, this is the other one that he comes with. I guess, again, this transforms out from his arm. I don't know. I'm not sure if he just carried these or if they were like in his forearms or what. I did a little bit of gold down there, but this is molded nicely and painted nicely anyway. Again, inside the blaster is black. I have it done with a metallic blue. Again, by request, but I think it looks good. I think it just adds to it a little bit more. This, too, has rectangular pegs and like a 5mm peg slot thing. This is the underside of that blaster where we do have the 5mm peg, but we also have next to it a little rectangular slot. And that little rectangular slot sort of next to it is where one of the rectangular pegs for the other blaster goes into it. So that it looks like this, basically. Now, in case you're wondering how this is held together, that slot that I pointed out to you has a rectangular peg that goes into it. On this second blaster, we have a rectangular peg on this side, way near the back, and we have one on the other side, kind of under this piece. The one on the other side, kind of under this piece, is what tabs in underneath. I'll show you from the bottom to see if we can get a better look at it. The other rectangular peg is kind of near the 5mm peg, and it slots into the side of this. It goes together really weird, but once you figure it out, you're gonna kind of say to yourself, oh yeah, well that makes sense. And then you use this peg, you use this rectangular peg to attach it to the, I guess, truck bed of Ironhide in vehicle mode. And basically in a package here we have Ironhide, and he comes out mistransformed. If you're looking at him and thinking, hey, he's not exactly correct, you would not be wrong. And the easiest way to sort of deal with him is we're going to put him in his robot mode, I'm going to say correctly first, even though he's mostly there. And then we'll go to his vehicle mode. Now, because this guy is so dark, I know it's challenging to see certain things and challenging for me to show certain things, but I was a little while before I sort of figured out, hey, he is kind of done incorrectly here. So I'm going to try and show it sort of as closely as I can. The very first thing to note is you open out his doors. Get those out of your way, just because they'll be easier to deal with after the fact. And now we'll deal with his chest. So what do we have to do with that? I'm glad that it's Ironhide having to get in this position and not me. I flipped his head back. By the way, his head does flip back, which does help to lock this section in, this little hole here, to lock it into that middle part of the chest. But you'll notice now, you can see the two rectangular slots that I'm talking about. It might be easier to peg these in from this position, to be honest with you. Once you have those chest pieces put in and the head flipped back and locked into position, we're not quite done yet. You will notice that we have a little spoke stuck out here and a little spoke stuck out here. On the back of the two door pieces, we have a little peg hole that goes over this. But before you bring the doors back and fold them back, you need to bring up the back piece. Bringing up that back piece, now we'll have the doors come back and lock in there and just go over the outer edge of this back piece to lock it into position. It is really weird. But hopefully I can kind of show it to you to make some semblance of sense. So you take this, you fold it back again. You take this and you fold it back, and you fold it back again. You're going to have to kind of flex things until the hole that's back right there goes over that piece. And you see I've done it too far there. Once you do all of that, you have this guy looking absolutely solid. And I'm telling you now, everything on this guy is very solid. At first, when I first took him out of the package, I thought, he's kind of not great because he's sort of falling all over the place. No, it's because he's mistransformed, and you have to do this. So, what comes next? The only thing that we're really sort of missing here at the moment is him having his kind of cannon pieces in his arms, and that's what you use the 5mm pegs for. On his elbows, you have like a couple of little slots, so you can take I don't know, let's say this one. And using that hole right there, you put the rounded peg hole, or the rounded peg into there, and same on this side. Rounded peg into there, and you end up with Ironhide looking something like this. Now this one is custom painted. Fresh out of package. What would I score this guy? Well, fresh out of package, he's still pretty good. I mean, the guy is going to be a solid, I'd say 8.5 for sure, maybe even a 9. The touch-ups I did here, yes, there's even room for more touch-ups that could be done on him. I feel like he, for as well-colored and accurate as he is, man, a customizer could do a beautiful job on this guy. I only done a few little touch-ups, and of course those 2 blaster lights, whatever, energy beams. You know, if he was an 8.5, he's probably a 9 now, maybe. You know, it's not a big difference. It was just a couple of little touch-ups to kind of put him over the top just a little bit, but he looks great. It is Ironhide, no doubt about it. In robot mode, he scales great. A couple of people have complained and said, hey, he's a small Voyager. No, he's not, because everybody thinks that these things are based on the height of the figure. They're not. They're based on the weight of the plastic, or the mass, I should say, of the plastic used. That's what costs the money. How that plastic is distributed, well, that's up to the designers, I suppose. He does weigh in at your typical Voyager class weight. So he is a Voyager class figure, even if somewhat shorter, but I can kind of forgive it because the guy is bulky and hefty. And truth is, he feels good in hand. Like, he feels pretty hefty in hand. And I like that. It's been a while since I held a figure that I actually felt like was hefty in hand. So, nice start. We're going to say, because I said 8.5 and then a 9, we'll say 8.75 for his paint apps. How does he scale? Because I talked about that. Well, here he is with Studio Series Deluxe Class Lockdown. So you can see, like, he's substantially bigger than Lockdown, which is why the guy is in Voyager class. I looked at Lockdown in episode 412, and here he is with Studio Series Ratchet. Again, a deluxe class figure. If I can get him. Oh no, nobody wants to stand for me. Again, you can see that he is significantly larger than Ratchet, but again, I think that makes sense, to be honest with you. I got Ratchet for my birthday a long time ago, and I looked at him in episode 405. Sidebar, if you will, for a moment. Size comparisons bring me to the Studio Series Wave 3 figures. And we're getting a repaint of Ratchet in that wave. I don't feel a need to pick that up. This Ratchet, I gave a score of 8.5 for paint apps, an 8 for articulation, and a 10 for transformation because I thought it was great. Overall score of 9. The new one, the repaint, to me this is more what I think of when I think of movie Ratchet than what the repaint is, even though I get where the repaint is coming from. I get the accuracy. But when I think of Ratchet, I think of this from the movies, not that newer paint scheme. Honestly, I would tend to grade down the paint scheme there to about a 7. And I would say that the repaint is, I don't know, maybe an 8. If this one's a 9, that one's maybe an 8. Nevertheless, it's a fun mold. A lot of people skipped it, but it is a fun mold. Then we get to Shadow Raider, who is the orange repaint with a new head for Lockdown. And I have been kind of told that the intention is for them to be kind of troop built as Lockdown's army, yet they have Decepticon symbols on them for some reason. I'll say this, the coloring on the kind of back of the package and the actual figure is different, a little bit disappointing because I think it was a bit richer on the back of the package. Let's be realistic, what most people are going to do is get that figure, take off the head, chuck the figure or put an alternate head on it, and use either this Lockdown head or the masked head. I would say this, I gave this Lockdown a 7 for paint apps. I would say Shadow Raider looks cool. I think that the orange really kind of pops. I'm going to say 8. I think it looks great. Maybe even 8.5 because I love the way that the head sculpt was done, the way that that mask was done and painted. I think it looks fantastic. The articulation would be exactly the same. Lockdown had 7.75, the new one would still have a 7.75, though I do like the integration of his accessory. And, oh, I'm sorry, that was a 7. The transformation was a 7.75, and the overall score was a 7.75. Shadow Raider is, you know, got a nicer paint scheme and a cooler head sculpt, so he you know, is an improvement there. If, just like, you know, this Ratchet was a 9, the repaint is an 8, I would say that this Lockdown was a 7.75. I think the repaint is probably an 8.25. It's a little bit better because I think the repaint looks cool. Then we get to the new Bumblebee. I can't do it, man. Can't do it. I'd love to look at it. I can't do it for owning it. Here's what I would say. Again, the original Bee, that was not mine, it belonged to John, that he let me take a look at. People either raved about it or really disliked it. And even in his review, I said back then that I felt like if you were a collector or a fan of complicated transformations, then he's easily like a 9. If you're buying it for a kid or you don't like overly complicated transformations, he's like a 1 or a 2. It's not a fun figure. It's not fun, but it's really interesting, and you can see the brilliance behind the engineering. I suspect the same sort of reaction is being found with the new Bumblebee. What's that? Not MP, Studio Series 18, 17? I don't know. I don't know what number he is. You guys might know better than me. I looked at that Studio Series Bumblebee in episode 387. When it comes to the new one, I think that there are a lot of nods to that first one, though I have been told that the legs are completely different. Good, great. I think in terms of paint apps, I said that the first one was like an 8. I think the new one is probably more like a 9. I think it's really close to the film. The articulation on the new one still looks to be about... The original was a 9. I don't know if this one's quite as secure because I've seen like times when the arm moves and like the chest looks like it might move a little bit with it. I don't know if it's just not pegged in. I don't know. I'm going to say that the articulation for that one is probably again an 8.5 or 9. And the transformation, again, I'm going to say if you like those sort of involved transformations for a deluxe and you can see the brilliance of it, it's probably pretty good and around a 9. If you don't like that, then it's probably around a 1 or 2. But here's the thing. The overall score for the original Bee, I'm going to go with a 9. For this one, I'm going to go with a 9, but I'm going to drop it down to a 7.5. And here's why. Because we're being charged a deluxe class price for a figure that I have heard stands 4.5 inches, which is 3/4 of an inch larger than a Legends class figure. But we are being charged a very premium deluxe class price point for something that's not a deluxe class figure. People have complained for years that figures have gotten smaller. Well, here is a big time example of that. I get it. It's meant to scale, and I think that that's brilliant, but I don't know if there's enough to it to warrant a deluxe class price point. That's my take. Without having any of them in hand, that's my take on Wave 3. Okay, back to the mission at hand, and that, of course, is Ironhide. So yeah, to me there is absolutely no doubt that he's a Voyager. He is substantially bigger than these two. Not only a bit taller, but much, much bulkier. A good start, I would say, in having like a 9 for this guy. We're going to say a 9 for his paint apps. I think that it looks great. Actually, I think we said 8.75. Wow, I've been throwing around a lot of numbers. So what about the guy's articulation? It's great. Once you get that chest in the right position, it's pretty great. The head, it can go left, it can go right. Now it only goes so far, but it goes left and right. By the way, you'll notice he has an eye that looks like the paint is messed up on it. That's deliberate. From what I can gather, that's on all of them, and it's supposed to represent battle damage. If you have one that's not painted that way, hey, let me know, because I have yet to see one that is not painted that way. And like I said, I think that the indication is that he's supposed to look like, you know, like a boxer that's had a few matches, and you know, he's taken a few knocks in his day because he is indeed a warrior. So the head goes left and right a bit, not really up and down, though there is a hinge there, so if you want to use the hinge, I guess you could get it up. The shoulders are weird, like they go out, and the way that this hinge is, it lets you go forward and it lets you go back. We have a bicep swivel. It also kind of angles back. It's really strange, but effective. We have a little over 90 degrees at the elbow. We can go way out to the side. We have like hand rotation, wrist swivel, I guess you'd call it. We don't seem to have a waist. That's a shame. The legs, however, can go well forward. They can go well back. We have a thigh swivel. We have 90 degrees at the knee. The feet can kind of bend forward and back a little bit. I will say this, over on this side, the hip joint, the outward, like, I guess, not even ratchet because it's friction, is pretty solid. On this side, not as much. I mean, you can't put it out and leave it out. It's not bad. I mean, like, when you're standing them up, it's fine, but, like, it's something worth noting that there is a bit of variation there. Full disclaimer, this is actually the second version of this figure that I had. There are pegs on the back of his forearms. Those pegs are used to tab the roof in truck mode. The first one that I got, I took it out of the package to inspect it, and I noticed that both of the tabs on the arms looked like they weren't the same. Suspicious. I touched the one that looked a little odd and thought to myself, this wiggles. And just as I thought this wiggles, it fell off. It was just sheared off, a clean break. I assume it must have happened either in transport or it must have happened from the factory because I didn't even get a chance to lift up the arm. Luckily, I was able to just return that one and get this exchanged. But I'll say this, I understand how those pegs on the arms could break. The tolerance of putting the roof down over those pegs when we get to it is very, very tight. At least on my copy here. And I presume it would have been tight on the original copy. I don't know, I never got that far. Nevertheless, check those pegs for stress marks. And I'll show you the pegs when we get there. Check them for stress marks, make sure everything is okay, because you really wouldn't want to break the guy now, would you? Articulation, nevertheless, is pretty great. Little odd, a waist would have been nice, maybe a little bit more head movement, but you know, he was 8.75, articulation, I'm going to say he's a 8.75, right now he's still an 8.75. What about the transformation for the guy? Well, we begin by removing the blasters from his arms, and the way that we put them together earlier, placing the rectangular peg into that slot, is just what we're going to do and lay it aside for now. So this is a case of it's not so much easy, but it is brilliant. We begin by opening out the, I guess, door sections. And to do that, as I said, we had a little, on the back here, we had a, I guess a rectangular slot put over a little spoke right there. We take the door, we open it all the way out. Same on this side, we take the door, we open it all the way out, and we're going to leave them for now. We come to the back and we just bring down the, I guess, whole roof section. I guess if you want, you can flip out the windshield, no problem. We flip back the head, and when we, that's on a tight hinge here. When we flip back the head, that allows us to unpeg the chest pieces and push this chest piece in. Before we do that, before we do any of that, we are going to close that piece up and fold that piece up, and inside we're going to pick that hood section out of the rectangular slot on his chest. We're going to pick this hood section out the same way, and now this whole piece here we'll be able to go down in between. We're going to get these just out of the way and push that whole hood section down and bring the head once again forward. We're going to bend up this part of the body. There's a little rectangular slot there. On the underside, there's a little rectangular peg here that goes into that slot. That's what solidifies the body, as well as this little piece coming up over the bumper. Now that we have this up, we can take these arms down out of the way. We can start dealing with, I guess, the upper body, but we're just going to rearrange things here a little bit to try and show this as much as possible. I'm not usually the sort of guy who feels a need to do a lot of like rearrangement to show a conversion, but with this guy, I feel like it's really necessary. So we have him like this, and what you want to do is, there's a weird, hinge that this whole section is on. And you want to bring it down over the front. And same here. You also want to take the shoulders in behind. You want to bring this down over the front, and they should tab together nice and easily. And then the bumper comes up. On this edge of the bumper and the other edge of the bumper, there's a little rectangular tab. A lot of what I've seen have had that rectangular tab out kind of over the front here. It doesn't go that way. It does tab up in. There's little spots for it, so that when you bring the bumper up, it should end up tabbing in behind that and look like this. If it doesn't look flush like that, then you don't have it tabbed in correctly. Anyway, now we can go to the back of the guy. And there's a whole lot that happens there. So you turn the dude around, and this is what you have. You will notice that you have a slot. Sorry, you have a slot here. You have a peg here on the door. This peg on the door in particular is going to go into that kind of rounded port on the elbow section, the place where we had his arm blasters before. That's what's going to kind of solidify the doors in, as well as this rectangular peg back here is supposed to attach over a section, I guess that's right now down on his shins. We'll get to it in a bit. I find that one of those does it pretty smoothly, the other one not so much. It's just, I think, the way it's toleranced. The interesting thing here is how the arms move, and I found the instructions useless for this. So you bring both shoulders all the way back that they can go. You have the side windows on the forearms. So you turn the forearm around, you bring it up at the shoulder, and then you bend the elbow. That's basically what you're doing on both sides here. Bring it up, turn it around at the bicep swivel, and bring down the elbow. A lot of people are very, very tempted at this point to bring in the doors. Don't do it yet. You're going to make life much more challenging for yourself if you do. What you should do, however, is deal with this whole roof section next. So we have the body sort of unfurled. We'll bring this down. Now, this was what I was talking about earlier. We have a peg here and a peg here. There's slots right there and right there that go on over these pegs. One of these pegs out of package was just sheared and holding on by a thread and broke off. The goal is to get those two pegs into the notches on the roof and bring the roof down, and then there's like a couple of little clear pegs and they go down sort of under the hood, and all of that should line up flush. You might have to give it an extra squeeze. It might be challenging to get both of those pegs in, but that's what you have to do. It is definitely easier to go back to robot mode and undo all of this stuff than it is to go from robot mode to vehicle. So we bring this up over and we bring it in like this. And we should be able to kind of squeeze all of that together now. This side, you can see, is not quite flush. So I'm going to get this flush and then we'll go on. And now everything is flush. I don't have the doors in yet, but this side is flush, as is the other side. Now some people have said, hey, why don't you just bring the hood section, or not the hood section, the roof and the windshield over to attach to the hood first and then push the arms in second, so that you're kind of pushing the opening over the slot that's there. You can't really do that because right behind the window is this black piece, and this black piece is attached to this, but that's also where the hands are. So you have to have the hands in position and put this up over the hands and down over and tab it in. Did it take me very long to kind of get this stuff in position? No, 10-15 seconds is all. It's just having it kind of closer to me and able to see what I was doing was easier than like misrepresenting how easy it is to do and making it look like it's a lot harder than what it actually is for you guys. So that's the top of this vehicle done. We're just waiting to peg in the doors. We can leave them for now. We have the bottom to deal with. And the bottom is simple. We open out the truck sections here. we start to bring up the feet while we bring these down. Bring the feet up the rest of the way, bring these down. Feet up the rest of the way, bring these down. Now we do have a peg back here that goes into the back bumper. It is very tight on mine. Once it's in there, it also does not like to come out, but it does make sure that the entire truck bed is flush. So I'm going to try and again do this now. It's not hard to do as long as you line it up. There's one done. This side I do find to be a little bit more challenging to line it up to do it. There. And now you put the legs together. They peg together and you bring them up. Now, it kind of looks like a truck. The only thing left to do really to solidify all of this is to put these doors in place. And like I said, we have a rectangular peg that goes into, where's the hole? Right there. Right there, the elbow hole that's just under the window. And then this rectangular peg should go over this rectangular slot here. So this side, and this side doesn't usually tend to be too bad. Yeah, there you go. That side went in no problem at all. And then we come to this side. This side, I can get that in. Do you think I can peg this other piece in? Nope. I would probably shave it. I would probably try and force it a little bit just to see how tight it is. This is not mine, so I'd rather not do that. So we're just going to pretend that the tolerance actually works. It's not hard, and I'm sure it does go in there. It's just I don't want to break this where it's not mine. I would say that the transformation, honestly, is involved but not hard. I like it better than Bumblebee. It's generally smooth. It's just there's a lot of intricate, odd little things to try and show you guys. In hand, once you've done it once or twice, I think you'll find it really enjoyable. He was 8.75. I'm going to say the transformation is a 9. The guy is like an 8.9, I guess, 8.95. It's a really good figure. That being said, on the back here, this is a bit of an unsightly gap, but we have two rectangular little slots there. And using the rectangular peg that I pointed out earlier, we just take this and it goes on there and it covers up that section on the back and it looks like this. And so here we have Studio Series Ironhide in its vehicle mode. I think it looks fantastic. Of course, it looks a little more fantastic from this side because we do not have, the issues. And I forgot one thing that I'm sure by now you guys have yelled at me about. I forgot to flip out the back tires. What was I thinking? He rolls tremendously well. Spectacular. Underneath, yeah, there's a bit of junk. There's a piece here sticking down. It doesn't touch the ground, but it just kind of barely clears it. It would have been nice if that could fold up. Nevertheless, it's a great Ironhide. It's a great looking Ironhide. The finished result is fantastic, even though it scales with nothing. It is, for the truck mode, it is too big. It would easily be about the size of Optimus. And I'm sorry, a pickup is not the size of a transport, but I think that the intention is for the robot modes to scale correctly, more so than the vehicle modes. And in that regard, he does scale correctly. And this does at least look nice. Should you get this or, you know, the like MPM Ironhide, I don't know. That's up to you and how much you're into Ironhide. But I think that if you just opt for this one as a representation of movie Ironhide in your collection, that you will probably end up being quite happy. And here we are once again, and this is Ironhide, and I like him. I kinda was on the fence at first about him and thought, I'm not so sure. Especially because the first one I had, out of package, had one of those tabs on the arm broke. What a shame. This one seems solid, but that roof section is very tight to get down over the arms. Once you have the chest transformed correctly and pegged in by those slots up by his head that I attempted to show you guys, the chest is very solid. When it pegs in on the, I don't know what you call them, spires sticking out of his shoulders, it makes it even more secure. As for the shoulders themselves, they're effective, but those hinges are kind of strange. Still, a bit of a welcome change from the old tried and true ball joints. The lower body is kind of where this guy shines because the legs work tremendously well despite looking very bulky, and the conversion to go to the back side of the truck is elegant, smooth, easy, and effective. The coloration is pretty excellent. Now, I did do a couple of custom paint apps that I do think add it by request, especially the yellow here and the blue over here in his two blasters. Is it necessary? No, but it's a nice little touch, so hey, why not? It's another really strong figure in the Studio Series line. And by the way, another little bit of an aside here. I think that Shadow Raider is a strong figure in the line as well. It's just, I already have the mold as Lockdown. I don't really need Shadow Raider. I don't really care if I have the face mask. I could see the appeal of it, and I do like the orange vehicle mode. Kind of like the orange on the robot mode too. But at the end of the day, it's just a repaint. And while I think that the Lockdown mold is kind of the best version of Lockdown that we've gotten, it's still not perfect. There are issues with the way the shoulders tab in over the hood. And there are slight limitations on the articulation of the shoulder that sort of bother me. The Ratchet is fine. It's fine. It's good. It's a good figure. I'm glad to have it. I use it as Remedy, who, at least in one of the continuities, trained Ratchet, ironically. The kind of first paint, the first version that came out is the one that I think of when I think of movie Ratchet. The repaint, it's not as Ratchet-y to me as I think I want the character to be. But that's just my personal taste, and perhaps he is to you. If you skipped over the Ratchet that came out the first time around, pick him up. He's fun mold. And then we come to Bumblebee, who I don't have, but I've heard an awful lot, and we have two very polarized camps with that guy. Those who love him and say he's one of the best figures, if not the absolute best Bumblebee that we've ever gotten. And then there are those who have said, this is just awful. It's junk. His arm blade thing, I think it is, does not stay tabbed up under the vehicle where it's supposed to. The vehicle is very thin plastic and doesn't tab together the best. The chest tends to move a little bit when you move his shoulders. Apparently, I've heard of a lot of people who say that they plan to return him. Here's my only real gripe with the guy, because I can't speak on the mold itself. I haven't experienced it, but like I mentioned before, he's 4.5 inches apparently, which compared to a Legend is only about 3/4 of an inch bigger. Not much bigger. A Legend around here goes for about $12.97, $12.99. So say $13. For another 1/4 inch, or sorry, 3/4 of an inch, you're paying more than double the price? That doesn't sit well with me, and I find it very hard to support. Now, if you're a huge Bumblebee fan, I get it. If you're like me and sort of a slave to scale, I get it. But just as a rendition of Bumblebee, I don't know. I don't know if they've hit it at the park with that one or not. Who knows? For now, I'm going to say what I said before. It's a 9 if you like B, if you like kind of more complicated transformations and whatnot. It's a 1 if you're just looking for a fun figure. Maybe a 2. I don't think it's a fun figure for kids. But then again, I'm sort of speaking without actual experience. And like I said, hopefully I'll get a chance to get that experience. Anyway, let me know what you think about all of the Wave 3 Deluxes thus far. If you've picked any of them up, I'd especially love to hear your thoughts. And what do you think of this guy? Do you think that Ironhide worked out great? Oh, by the way, before we leave, should you get this Ironhide or wait for the Masterpiece? Well, this one is definitely the more affordable. I guess the Masterpiece is probably going to be better. Maybe. I don't know. Is it going to be worth the price of admission? I doubt it. I think that this works fine. It's bulky, it's hefty, it has an interesting conversion, and it looks really good. I don't know. Works for me. Let me know what you think. As always, I want to thank you for dropping by, for giving me some of your extremely valuable time. Again, I'm going to say please hit that subscribe button because it helps me out tremendously. And I very much look forward to the next time that you and I get together to have another visit right here inside the videos.